so one of the things to immigration, we have to talk about it. A lot of Christian organizations for years tried to sort of promote this sort of compassionate approach to immigration. And then we found out when, the door was busted wide open on U.S. aid, that there were dollars that were funneling into these progressive organizations. And they weren't just politically progressive. These are like evangelical organizations that got hijacked in order to promote open borders.
Correct.
Evangelical immigration table is a great example. So why, and I think this is so important, why is it so critical? I guess the Christian case for closing the borders, the Christian case for...
Well, yeah, I mean, look, first we must start and acknowledge there's plenty of scriptures that say you should love the foreigner because you were once strangers in Egypt, Leviticus 19. I mean, there's plenty of scriptures that say that. There's also equal amount of scriptures that warn you about how foreigners can become your masters. In the end of Deuteronomy, Moses explicitly says that in his farewell address. First of all, let's take a step back. Does God want different nations?
Yeah.
Yes. Genesis 11. He does not want a oneness of the planet.
Right.
He wants distinctions. And God separated in the first 11 books of Genesis, it was all about distinctions. It started with distinctions of light and darkness, and then it went on to distinctions of land and sea and distinctions of male and female, and then the moral distinctions of good and evil, and then holy and profane, and man and nature. But it culminates with distinctions between nation and globe. That's the last distinction before we meet Abraham.
Right.
Or Abram at the time. And so that's our first question, is does God want separate, distinct nations? Okay, the second question is, do we have examples of God affirming the building of boundaries and barriers or walls when appropriate? Of course, there's an entire book of the Bible dedicated to this, Nehemiah. It's Donald Trump's favorite book of the Bible, Build the Wall.
Yeah.
Which, of course, so now we know God wants nations. In fact, they're established by God. He says, I separate the boundaries of nations. Secondly, we know that God affirms the righteous constitution of such borders. And then the third question should be, does God say that we should weaken the administration of justice because you are poor? No, in fact, in Leviticus 19, it says the opposite. Leviticus 19's got some beauties. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's got the homosexual verse, right? Yeah. Thou shalt not lay with another man. It also has, this is one of my favorites, and it is so less underappreciated. I got this from my dear friend, Dennis Prager. In the administration of justice, you shall not give favor to the poor or to the rich. This is a breakthrough moral teaching that built the West. Blind justice.
Right.
So before we even think about immigration, it is a law enforcement question. That's where we're conflating two different things. So we have an immigration question on one side, who should we let into the nation? But then we have a separate law enforcement question, which is breaking the law biblical? No, God is not a God of chaos. Right. He's not a God of disorder. He is a God of mercy and compassion. But when you have 20 million people that have illegally harbored themselves and domiciled themselves into the interior of the United States, that is a justice question.
Right.
And so anyway, I think I've made that argument very clear that justice is blind. It should be. And you shall not favor them just because they are quote unquote undocumented or they come from a separate nation. Right. And then the final part, which I think is important, is not the only important. It's separate, but it's assimilation. If you bring people into your nation that don't assimilate, they don't have a right to be here. And so I think Christians far too often, they get stuck up on this idea, especially the ridiculous heretical Green Family funded He Gets Us advertisements, which I'm told was from only one part of the family or the other. I don't know. They're like, hey, this was, what was it? Mary, like this is Jesus or something. And he's going across the border, whatever. Or Joseph, right? Where they show Joseph. First of all, so heretical. And no, Jesus and his parents never broke the law. Yeah. They were law abiding. And so hilariously, the very same people that told us to follow all the COVID mandates and that use Romans 13 don't use Romans 13 when it comes to immigration.
Interesting, right? It's very
so anyway,
convenient.
I could go on endlessly about immigration. This is not actually as deep or as complicated as they make it seem. Right. And so you build the wall, you secure your border, and anyone that is not here legally will be returned to their country of origin. Yes. We're not putting them in jail. We're not torturing them. We're not ridiculing them. We're simply saying, you're not in this nation, you go to another nation. Right. It's simply a relocation strategy.
Totally. Totally.
I don't think it's that. I think we overcomplicate it. And mainly because liberalism has become the primary gospel of American Christianity.
Right. It's the default setting.
Yes. Right. So modernity has infected the gospel. So we have gospel verses to justify modernity,
right?
instead of the Bible, which then should then extrapolate itself into our world.